My early years, right before I started college, I spent 2 seasons helping out with the Rescouche Intermediate Baseball League's Beldoon Moosehead. Now, I rode the pines for 2 years being benched by a guy who made it the Brunswick Baseball Hall of Fame, Georges Parent, as a builder, and more well-deserving, but he had 5 or 6 young players on their team, and he didn't know what to do with them. And he'd always get mad at me for making conversation outside of the box. We were playing Dalhousie Dodgers on a certain game, and our pitcher wasn't doing anything on the mound. His fastball wasn't working, and I basically said maybe he should come off the mound and, till it like Mark Fidrych that helped the bird in his fastball. And the priest turned to me and he basically said, talk about Mark the Bird Fidrych is not baseball. Well, I told him, said, yes, it is. To me, the greatest baseball player, not for talent, not for results, for the love of the game, is Mark the Bird Fidrych. And we're going to talk about him today, how he was a role model to a lot of people of my generation, born in the 60s and grew up in the 70s and 80s. Now, Mark Stephen Fidrych, the pride of Worcester, Massachusetts, lived a short life and died in a strange, not say industrial accident, but a strange repair accident. Nicknamed the Bird, he was an American Major League Baseball pitcher. He had his entire career with the Tigers, despite the fact he tried to come back with the Red Sox in Pawtucket, but didn't work out. Known for his quirky antics on the mound, he led the major leagues with a 2.34 ERA in '76, won the AL Rookie of the Year, and finished with a stellar 19-9 record. Started the All-Star game for the AL, but lost that year, but didn't diminish, like I said, his popularity. His popularity was so huge, he was getting thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of fan mail, and some of the fans would send him money in the mail because he knew how much he was making as a pitcher. Shortly after, however, injuries derailed his career after a '76 season, which ended after just 5 campaigns in the major leagues. The son of an assistant school principal, he played baseball at the prestigious Algonquin Regional High School in Northborough, Massachusetts, and at Worcester Academy, a day-in boarding school in Central Mass. In the '74 amateur draft, he was selected in the 10th round by the Detroit Tigers. He later joked that when he received a call saying he had been drafted, he thought he was drafted into the military, not thinking there were any teams looking at him. In the minor leagues, one of his coaches with the Lakeland Tigers dubbed the 6'3", lanky right-handed pitcher the Bird because of resemblance to the Big Bird character. And of course, he appeared together on the famous Rolling Stone magazine cover. Now, Fidrych made the Tigers as a non-roster invitee out of a '76 spring training, not making his MLB debut until April 20th, and pitched only 1 inning through mid-May. But by his third appearance on May 15th, Fidrych was making his first major league start, caught by Bruce Kim, his battery mate at 1975's AAA Evansville. He held the Cleveland Indians hitless through 6 innings in that game and ended up with a 2-hit, 2-1 complete game victory with 1 walk and 5 strikeouts. In addition to his pitching, Fidrych attracted attention in his debut for talking to the ball while on the pitcher's mound, strutting in a circle around the mound after every out, patting down the mound, and refusing to allow groundskeepers to fix the mound in the 6th inning. After the game, sports writer Jim Hawkins wrote to the Detroit Free Press, he is really something to behold. Rico Cardi of the Indians said he thought Fidrych was trying to hypnotize them. And boys, he hypnotized the fans. Every game he would play with Detroit that season, we were getting more and more fans and more attention. Not only in Massachusetts because of his home area, but in Michigan. And especially in eastern Canada where we loved him, in eastern U.S. He was sort of like a shaman. You know how a shaman comes in or like a good witch doctor and he puts the hex? Well, he would put the hex on the mound, not really to intimidate his opponents, but make sure to tell the ball, we got to do something to get these people out. He was never negative towards his opponents. If anything, it was more than positive. He would shake hands with umpires and people after every game. It was just beautiful to watch. Now, this is where it got really huge. On May 25th at Fenway Park, he started his second game in front of 2 busloads of fans who traveled from Northborough to see the contest. Now, Fidrych pitched well, allowing 2 home runs, a 2-run homer by Kyle Yastrzemski in the 8 innings, but Louis Tiant shut out the Tigers, and Fidrych received his first major league loss. On May 31st, he pitched an 11-inning complete game victory over the Brewers. On June 5th, he pitched another 11-inning complete game victory over the Rangers in Arlington, and Fidrych continued to play well heading into the All-Star break. Now, on June 11th, he pitched a complete game 4-3 win over the Angels in front of 37,000 fans in a Friday night game at Tiger Stadium. On June 19th, he pitched a 4-3 victory over the Royals before 22,000 fans on a Wednesday night game at Tiger Stadium. Now, when he returned to Fenway Park on June 24th with his family and friends in the stands, he unfortunately gave up back-to-back home runs to Lynn and Yastrzemski, but won his sixth consecutive start. Now, as Yastrzemski said in published reports, I can see the ball, but sometimes I can't see it. And like I said, he was that type of pitcher. It's like a knuckleball. He would throw like an off-speed and a lot of movement to his ball, especially in a lower strike zone. But get this. The big contest, which you can see on YouTube in whole or in part, was on June 28, 76, when he pitched before 47,855 fans at Tiger Stadium and a national television audience in the millions, as they hosted the Yankees with Bob Prince, Warner Wolf, and Bob Uecker in the broadcast booth. Fidrych earned a 5-1 complete game victory, which took only a speedy 1 hour and 51 minutes. Fans would not leave the stadium until the Bird emerged from the dugout for a curtain call. After the broadcast, which was filled with plenty of bird antics, Fidrych became a national celebrity. But you got to understand, in 1976, coming out of Vietnam, the 200th anniversary of the United States, the rebuilding of the country, there was seen more potential. He became a national, international hero because he reflected what was best about the United States in regards to underdogs and celebration of skills. Now, on July 3rd, Fidrych pitched well before a sellout crowd of 52,000 on a Saturday night at Tiger Stadium. He shut out the Orioles 4-0, improved to 9-1-10 starts, and reduced his ERA to 1.85. Now, on July 9, pitching in front of a sellout crowd of 51,000 at Tiger Stadium, he held the Royals to 1 run in 9 innings, but Dennis Leonard shut out the Tigers 1-0. Despite the loss, Detroit fans refused to leave the stadium until the Bird made a curtain call. Now, when he was named to the 76 All-Star team, the contest was played at July 13 at Veterans Stadium, Philadelphia. He was named a starter for the AL, at the time becoming just the second rookie to start an All-Star game following Dave Stenhouse in '62. Fidrych unfortunately gave up 2 earned runs in the first inning, none in the second, but took the loss. Just 3 days later, on July 16th, Fidrych won his 10th game, a 1-0 victory over the A's. 4 days later in Minneapolis, before Fidrych's 13th start, the Twins released the 13 homing pitchers on the mound before the game. According to Fidrych, they tried to do that to blow my concentration. Now, Fidrych pitched another complete game, an 8-3 win, and improved his record 11-2. On Saturday, July 24th, he surrendered 4 earned runs on 9 hits and lasted only 4 in the third innings. John Hiller got the win for the Tigers in long relief on the game of the week. Now, after the contest, Fidrych was interviewed on live TV, and a small controversy arose when Fidrych said bullshit on the air. Fidrych recalled, NBC commentator Tony Kubik said, "It looked like you were going to cry," and I just said, "No, I wasn't about to cry, it was just bullshit." And then I said, "Excuse me." I said, "I didn't mean to swear in the air, but I just showed you my feelings." The next day, Fidrych received a telegram informing him he had been fined $250 by baseball commissioner Bowie Kuhn. However, it was a prank sent by his own teammates. Now, on July 29th and August 7th, Fidrych drew consecutive 6-hit complete games. He won one of the games and lost the other. The Tigers edged the Rangers 4-3 on August 11th as Fidrych notched his 13th win over Gaylord Perry. 6 days later, the Tigers drew a season-high 51,822 fans as Fidrych went to 14-4, beating Frank Tanana 3-2. On August 25th, the Tigers downed the White Sox 3-1 in front of 40,000 fans on a Wednesday night in Detroit. He held the Red Sox to 5 hits in a game which lasted only 1 hour 48 minutes. Between August 29th and September 17th, Fidrych lost 3 consecutive decisions, bringing his record to 16-9. Now, when Fidrych bet the Indians 2 starts in a row on September 21st and 28th, in his last start of 76 season, he picked up his 19th win, defeating the Brewers 4-1, giving up 5 hits. A month later, Fidrych was announced as the runner-up for the Cy Young Award, with Jim Palmer taking the prize. Now, he was AL Rookie of the Year and was named Tiger of the Year by the Detroit baseball writers. He led all of Major League Baseball in ERA with .234 and adjusted his ERA plus at 158, while leading AL in complete games with 24. He finished in the top 5 in several other statistical categories, including victories, win percentage, shutouts, walks plus hits per innings pitched, and bases on balls per 9 innings pitched. He received 11 highest vote total in the AL MVP voting. Now, in Fidrych's 18 home starts in 76, he compiled a 12-6 record, while the Tigers averaged 33,649 fans. In these non-starts, the team drew an average of only 13,843 for each contest. Now, during the off-season between 76 and 77, Fidrych published an autobiography of Tom Clark titled "No Big Deal," and he was doing heavy amount of endorsements, everything you can call for. Now, in 77, this is where the injury bug came in. He tore a cartilage in his knee fooling around the outfield during spring training in 77. Some people said he hit a water spout. He picked up where he left off after his return from the injury, but about 6 weeks after return, during a Independence Day game against Baltimore, he felt his arm, just in his words, go dead. It was a torn rotator cuff, but it would not be diagnosed until, get this, 8 years later. At the time, Fidrych injured his arm in Baltimore, and his record at the time was 6-2. He was then removed from the game after 5.2 innings, right after Eddie Murray hit a 2-run homer. The Orioles then scored 6 runs in the inning and won the game 6-4. Fidrych finished the season 6-4 with a 2.89 ERA and was again invited to the All-Star game, but he declined due to injury. Still on the disabled list toward the end of the season, Fidrych worked as a guest color analyst on a Monday night baseball telecast for ABC. He was subsequently criticized for his lack of preparation, as when play-by-play partner Al Michaels tried talking to him about Philadelphia Phillies player Richie Hebner and Fidrych, Fidrych responded by saying, "Who's Richie Hebner?" As an AL player, Fidrych had never had to face Hebner, who played in the National League. Now, he pitched only 3 games in 78, winning 2, including an open day win. On August 12, 1980, 48,361 fans showed up at Tiger Stadium to see what turned out to be his last attempt at a comeback. He pitched his last MLB game on October 1st, 1980 in Toronto, going 5 innings and giving up 4 earned runs, while picking up the victory in 11-7 Tigers triumph, which was televised in Detroit. Now, at the end of the 81 season, Detroit gave Fidrych an outright release, and he signed as a free agent with the Red Sox, playing for one of their minor league teams, for the minor league team in Pawtucket, the big AAA franchise. However, his torn rotator cuff, still not diagnosed and left untreated, never healed. At age 29, he was forced to retire. Fidrych went to famed sports medicine Dr. James Andrews in 88, and Dr. Andrews discovered the torn rotator cuff and operated. Still, the damage already done to the shoulder effectively ended Fidrych's chance of coming back to the pro baseball career. Now, he would have been diagnosed much more quicker in 2022, but I think what happened, like I said, their heads were up their arse. If he didn't know it was a rotator cuff, what else would it going to be? Now, Fidrych, despite having retired, remained cheerful and upbeat. In a 98 interview, when asked who he would invite to dinner if he could invite anyone in the world, Fidrych said, "My buddy and former Tigers teammate Mickey Stanley, because he's never been to my house." His self-deprecating sense of humor endeared him to a lot of people because he had that Massachusetts friendly personality style, but it was also a kid at heart. And you see the documentary that was done on him a couple of years ago. He was loved by his family and his fans because he never changed. Now, Fidrych, with his beautiful wife Anne, who he married in '86, resided on a 107-acre location in Northborough. He had a daughter, Jessica. Aside from fixing up his farmhouse, he worked as a contractor hauling gravel and asphalt in a 10-wheeler. On weekends, he helped out in his mother-in-law's business, Chet's Diner, on Route 20 in Northborough. The diner was later operated by his daughter. He would also frequent the local baseball field to help teach and play ball with the kids. Now, like I said, Fidrych's change of pace was not an overpowering pitcher, posting strikeout rates below the league average throughout his career. He was, however, praised for having exceptional control, compiling a walk rate of 1.77 per 9 IP over his first 2 seasons, and for having good late movement on his pitches while keeping the ball down and inducing many ground balls. He only allowed 23 homers and 412 major league innings. Compare that to Bert Blyleven, ladies and gentlemen. Now, personality, again, loved by everybody. He captured the imagination of fans with his, not only his antics on the field, but his positive personality. He would crouch down in the pitcher's mound and fix cleat marks in what became known as manicuring the mound, talk to himself, talk to the ball, aim the ball like a dart, strut around the mound after every out, and throw back balls that had hits in them, insisting they be removed from the game. Because Tigers coaches were somewhat superstitious about jinxing Fidrych's success, Bruce Kim, a rookie catcher, called each of Fidrych's outings. As his success grew, Tiger Stadium crowds would chant, "We want the bird, we want the bird," at the end of each of the home victories. The chants would continue until he emerged from the dugout to tip his hat to the crowd. While these curtain calls have become more common in modern sports, they were less so in mid-1970s baseball. His 18 appearances at Tiger Stadium, attendance equaled almost half of the entire season's 81 home games. Teams started asking Detroit to change his pitching rotation so Fidrych could pitch in their ballparks, and he appeared on cover of numerous magazines, including Sports Illustrated, twice, including one with Sesame Street character Big Bird. To my memory, I think it was Sports Illustrated, but I think it was a Rolling Stone cover as well. You can check into that. Now, as of recently, he's the only baseball player ever to appear on the cover of the Rock and Roll magazine and of Sporting News. In 1 week, Fidrych turned away 5 people that wanted to be his agent, saying, "Only I know my real value, and I can negotiate it." Now, he also drew attention for the simple bachelor lifestyle he lived in spite of his fame, driving a green subcompact car, living in a small Detroit apartment, wondering aloud if he could afford to answer all of his fan mail on his league minimum of $16,500, and telling people that if he hadn't been a pitcher, he'd be happy pumping gas in Northport. I know one thing, I'd be happy pumping gas in Massachusetts, because some of the nicest people in the world are from Massachusetts, and most of them show up at gas stations. At the end of his rookie season, the Tigers gave him a $25,000 bonus and assigned him to a 3-year contract worth $255,000. Economists estimated that extra attendance Fidrych generated around the league in '76 was worth more than $1 million. Fidrych also did an Aqua Velva TV commercial after the '76 campaign. He was also considered for the role of his jock Tom Chisholm in Grease, a role that ultimately went to Lorenzo Lamas. Exactly. Now, his passing, this is the details. We say not to exploit his death, but to explain what happened. Now, according to the Worcester District Attorney's Office, a family friend found Fidrych dead between his 10-wheel dump truck at his Northport home around 2:30 p.m. on April 13, 2009. He appeared to have been working on the truck at the time of the accident. Authorities said Fidrych suffocated after his clothes had become entangled with a spinning power takeoff shaft on the truck. The state medical examiner's office ruled the death an accident, according to a release from the Worcester District Attorney's Office. Now, Joseph Amorello, owner of a road construction company, who had occasionally hired Fidrych to haul gravel or asphalt, had stopped by the farm to chat with him when he found the body underneath the dump truck. "We were just, in general, getting started for the road building season this week, and it seems as though his truck was going to be needed. It looked like he was doing some maintenance on it." Amorello said in a telephone interview, "I found him under the truck. There's not much more I can say. I dialed 911, and that's all I could do." Fidrych was eventually cremated, and the funeral was held in Fidrych's honor. Thousands of people came to pay respects, and he still pay respects every day throughout Massachusetts. In 2012, a wrongful death suit filed by Fidrych's widow was dismissed by a Massachusetts appeals court in November 2017. In a unanimous decision, the court ruled that the companies in question did provide warnings and that their equipment was free of design defects. Further, the court declared that the companies had no legal duty to provide any such warning because Fidrych modified the truck. Now, Fidrych was inducted into the Shrine of the Eternals of the Baseball Reliquary in 2002. In one of Bill James' baseball books, he quoted the Yankees' Craig Nettles as telling about an at-bat against Fidrych, who, as usual, was talking to ball before pitching to Nettles. Immediately, Craig jumped out of the batter's box and started talking to his bat. He reportedly said, "Never mind what he says to the ball. You just hit it over the outfield fence." Nettles struck out. "Damn," he said, "Japanese bat doesn't understand a word of English." Nettles actually hit Fidrych very well in his career with a 7 for 18 average, 7 for 18, 389 average, and 2 home runs. Now, on April 15, 2009, the Tigers paid tribute to Fidrych at Comerica Park with a moment of silence and a video before the game against the White Sox. At the time of his death, he was about to be inducted in the National Polish-American Sports Hall of Fame. He was inducted posthumously on June 18, 2009. On June 19, 2009, Jessica Fidrych honors her father at Comerica Park by throwing out the ceremonial first pitch to manager Jim Lealing for the Tigers against the Brewers. Prior to throwing out the first pitch, Jessica manicured the mound just like her father, and Fidrych, widow Mark Fidrych, was also present on the field for the ceremony. Now, the Baseball Project, a band that specialized in songs about baseball, honored Fidrych in her song 1976. Now, to find out more information about Mark Fidrych, of course, the book he did with Tom Clark, No Big Deal. Tom has done books. Doug Wilson wrote The Bird, The Life and Legacy of Mark Fidrych. And, of course, there's a myriad of documentaries and different reports. But especially, I think there's a 30 for 30. But The Bird, for me, like I said, I played a majority of my ball in that great era after the expansion of the Blue Jays in '77 with the Expos, the 1980s dynasty. But we looked up to Mark Fidrych because he had the game in him. Baseball is a game for kids. There's no yelling, there's no spitting, you shake hands at the end. But Mark was a role model to me because he was himself his whole life. My biggest regret in my life, I've never had a chance to interview him or to do a direct story on him. I started dating my wife from Massachusetts in 1998, and I always thought I was going to meet the Bird. I should have took a drive over and just asked him straight out, how did it feel being the most famous baseball player in the world for those several months in the summer of '76? And the Bird is, it's hard, like sports athletes that transcend sport. I'll give you an example. The Hansons, Slapshot, the characters of Slapshot. He transcends sport because he appeal to the hockey player. What Mark Fidrych appealed to people, not one person had something bad to say about Mark Fidrych. I watched these games, and when he struck the people out, they were saying, they're part of something. But if anything, he should have been a pitching coach for minor league teams, single A, double A, because the way he pitched, you couldn't hit him because you didn't know what was coming. But I can say one thing. I say a prayer for his family every day. For having such a force in their life and such a good person, to not have him around anymore, that's the heavy tragedy. To die in a very unnecessary death. And he was doing what he was loving. He was working with his hands. Everything he did was with his hands, either as a mechanic or a pitcher or just, holding hands with his wife and, taking care of his baby. I mean, his hands were his life. And the Bird, we miss you. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like Mark the Bird Fidrych and like what we're doing with the Vintage podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share, or support, as we say. But I know if he would have played in Boston, maybe he wouldn't have had as much success, because at the time Detroit was not the Detroit Tigers of the late 1980s. They were kind of floundering in the 70s because most of their dynasty team, not say dynasty, but the contender that Billy Martin and everybody had built up in the early 70s was gone. But Mark Fidrych, and some of these hockey cards, these baseball cards are only like 25 cents, 50 cents. You get them easy, like it doesn't make any sense. Like there's a whole generation of people never heard of Mark Fidrych. Like the people like me over 50, Mark Fidrych is considered, again, the most underrated pitcher of all time for what he did in that season. He became, a superstar overnight, and you don't do that in sports. I think the last one we have like that is Tiger Woods, and there's no joke in there. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, thanks for listening, and don't forget, March break across North America. Treat your children well, just like Mark treated his family well. Thanks for listening.